Welcome to the podcast where we speak truth, illuminate power, and fully embody who the fuck we are. This is the Light Warriors Unleashed podcast. We are all about spiritual evolution, spiritual growth, talking about the things that may be controversial, even some triggering concepts, but we are all about expansion. Come on in and join us as we reclaim and recenter ourselves in the power of who we really are. We are the Light Warriors, and welcome to the revolution.
Oh my gosh, guys, this is going to be an amazing episode. And I cannot wait to serve this episode to you in the space of all the things, because Kris was a beautiful, beautiful guest to have on. We jammed out in the space of all the things that were possible in the world in connection with this spiritual evolution we've both been on. So we transparently talk about her book and why the book came about. We lean into politics because the day we recorded this was on the election of the United States on November the 5th of 2024. So we lean into some of the energies of that, not in a way of like dissecting the candidates, but in a way of talking about the fear in the world and what we're seeing within duality in the space of stuff. We move into movement in the body and like health aspects of what we believe in and pushing ourselves in boundaries. And we talk a lot about manifestation and really honing into conscious choice. And this was a powerful, powerful episode. And I am so grateful that Kris came onto the podcast. I was interviewed on her podcast a while ago too. And we just jam out. And I love the fact that I get to bring these beautiful expanded guests to you. You know, she's a speaker, she's an author. She does beautiful stuff in the coaching world, and her impact and calibration is really about serving people to move through their stuff, to not be victims in the world, and to actually step up into the space of what they're actually meant to and can be led within to lead in the world. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Kris Ashley, Light Warriors Unleashed podcast, episode 120. So this is going to be really exciting. So Kris and I have had conversation before, and we floated into each other's world. And I'm just super stoked to have you on the podcast today, Kris. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Colleen. I'm really excited to, like we were just saying in the green room, to see where the conversation goes today. I'm just grateful to be here.
Yeah, me too. And I feel like I really want to kind of lead into like, what have you been feeling? So I know we're recording this in November. It's not going to launch for a bit, and somebody may not listen to this for like a year. But in the space of your own personal transition and the stuff you're working through in your own life, what are you kind of seeing out there in the world of energy and spiritual connection and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, what a great question. Well, just for even more context for listeners, we're recording this on November 5th, and you're in the US, right?
No, well, I'm in Costa Rica, and I'm Canadian. But yes, it's the day of the
Okay,
election.
okay. So then it's not even relevant to you, but it's the US election today. And I've been having a lot of conversations with people on my own show and just in the community about how, there's this idea that the earth is kind of splitting, right? And we're moving into 5D earth, but there's just chaos all around us. There's there's like all these horrible wars. There's division, at least in the United States. And I think it's really a time to kind of go inward and understand that we create our own reality, and to level up a little bit and to focus more on that high vibration and not get sucked into the fear and the drama and everything that's kind of swirling around right now. So I've been having a lot of those conversations, and I'm just coming off recording an episode from my own show where we were talking about just that. So it's kind of fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not even where you wanted to go, but
I want to go everywhere. Wherever
yeah,
we're being led is exactly where we're aligning. So this is perfect.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I think it's really a time of true transformation. You can kind of like feel it, right? Like things are kind of rapidly speeding up. More and more people are awakening. The level of humanity seems to be kind of rising a little bit.
Yep.
And it's up to us if we want to like get stuck in that same old paradigm, or if we want to move towards change and move towards something really beautiful and new.
Yeah, and I love this conversation because I have a collective, which is my membership, and I teach every Tuesday. So today I was teaching in the collective about energy and about our real desire to expand within it, and that we can shift anything with energy, you know. And obviously the US election doesn't just impact the United States, it impacts everywhere, especially Canadians, because most of the Canadian infrastructure is based in some of the US energies. So it, depending on who gets in and the energies that they're moving through, will dictate some of the stuff that's transpiring in Canada. So it's a pivotal dynamic to even look at, to see it that way as well. But I love the fact that you brought up conscious creation. And like, as I've been talking about this a lot over the last few months, about we dictate our own realities. We are the ones in the space that get to step in to say that the storyline's changing, or this belief system's being abolished, or I'm not buying into the drama of the world. And I love that you brought that forward, because it's like an imperative thing I've been speaking into lately, which I'm not surprised at all. Just the way that we vibe together. So I'm like, yeah, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that it's all connected. And our outer world really is a reflection of what's going on within us. And then, there's kind of that knee-jerk defensive reaction. It's like, I can't be creating all of this. But the way to heal the outside world is to go within and to heal ourselves, right? Like, you can't force change on the outside. That's material, right? That's matter. But like you said, everything is energy. So if we can go in and create a really beautiful, healthy, healed space within, then that's going to reflect in our outer world. And old paradigms are breaking, right? And sometimes before the new gets birthed, the old kind of gets shaken up and crumbles away. And it feels like that's a little bit what's happening too, right? Like the way out is through. We have to like go through all of this for that new birth to happen.
Yeah, and we're at a pivotal, like, and we're always at, I say this often, but it's like, we're at a pivotal time energetically. And it's like, it's almost like the energy is always going to be pivotal for the changes we need to make. But it's
Totally.
like we're in like eclipse season, and with the election and all the stuff happening with the planets, which I don't know a lot about, but from an astrology perspective, I lean into some people that are really gifted there. And I'm like, they just say we're in rebirth, you know? And it's like, it feels that way almost. And maybe not like, if you don't like the term rebirthing, but a reclaiming of our birth, we can call it, like a reclaiming of our power, of our like light, of our mechanism forward. And it's all coming down though to choice. Like, we choose to do the work. We're choosing to go through, right? Because a lot of us are avoiding it, or we're pretending it's not happening, or all the things that are transpiring, when it's like, you can wake up every day and continue to choose the vibrational state you desire, the things you really want in life, how you're showing up in the world, and you keep doing the work around that. It's like, that's where the momentum starts to create, and that connection of divinity starts to really like lock itself into your field, right? So yeah.
Totally. And like, you're reminding me of like that phrase, what you resist persists, right? When you're saying like some of us aren't even paying attention, or like don't even want to look at it. It's like there's a fine line between, we don't want to like give it our attention so much that we're getting sucked into the fear, and we're moving on to that timeline, right? Where like, any possible reality exists, and it's what you put your attention on that's going to start to call that reality in, and you're going to align with the thoughts and the feelings and the actions and the habits of that timeline.
Yeah.
So by even like resisting something, like being like, ooh, I don't want that, you're actually giving your energy to it, right? It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it, going into a space of acceptance and kind of going with the flow a little more, you can actually call into something a little more beautiful.
You know, I love that you brought this up, and it's like, I agree with you 100% on all of this, and the way you delivered it is amazing. And I was reminded just recently, so I have these future conversations in my field. So I'm on a walk and I'm talking to somebody in the future about something. Okay. So someone asks, and I know this is kind of crazy, but I'll bring it up. Yeah. You know, so like, I was asked this question by a guy that I'm going to be dating, who's not currently in my world, but is coming into my world. And he says to me, what is your biggest fear? And I said, look, like, I don't want to put any energy on this, because I'm a fucking phenomenal manifester. And like, I don't want to like lean into this conversation this way, but I want to say to you, like, it's a snake falling out of a tree onto me. Okay. And like, that is like, cause I walk
That's
under,
legit.
yeah, I walk under trees all the time in the jungle. Like, most of the time you don't see the snakes, but they're like, I think like they say like 80% of the snakes are up in trees. And there's like 26 different kind of venomous snakes here where I live, in this region where I live. Okay.
Okay, so
And
it's like a legit fear that you
it's
have.
like a
Like
legit
it's not like
like
you're walking around
concern.
Canada, you're in Costa Rica.
No, I'm in Costa Rica. Like I'm in the middle of the jungle, and I've seen snakes. There's been one in my house. Like I was like a couple feet away from a 6-foot snake walking across the freaking street. So like this is a thing. And geckos have dropped on me from the ceiling before, like onto my body. I know. So it's like one of these
Oh my
things.
God.
So I was having this conversation in future time with the man I'm gonna meet. And I'm like, but I don't want to put any energy on this because I will attract, like I walk under trees every day. Like I will attract this to happen
Can't
in my
avoid the
world,
trees.
you know? But it's the same thing, like what you're even speaking into. It's like if we put energy into what we don't want, we're creating more of what we don't want. We're actually calling that in because it's the energetics of it, the potency of that creation. So I'm like, I can release that now. Okay, we're good. I'm good. I do not need any snakes. I'm good. I'm okay not seeing any. Like I'm so fine, you know?
Good on the snakes.
Yeah. But it is a real thing. Like it's like actually common. And I have poisonous toads that come into my yard at night. And it's like, what gets rid of poisonous toads? Snakes. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'll take the poisonous toads. Yeah, we're
You're like, what's the next thing on the food chain? Like, what
yeah,
gets rid of the poisonous snakes?
yeah. And then it's like, no, I'm okay
Not
with
your cat.
that coming in here too. Yeah, you know. So it's an interesting vibe, you know, in all the things.
I mean, it's so true though. And like even like the language we use when we're manifesting, you kind of touched on this too. Like by saying like I want something, you're actually like coming from the place of lack, right? Because
Right.
if you want it, you don't have it. So like or
Yeah.
being like, oh, it's I'm going to have my dream house or whatever it is, or my dream partner. But if you say I'm going to, it's like always off in the future there. So it can be tricky, right? You have to be really mindful of how you speak and think and write and the energy you put out there.
Everything. And it all comes
Yeah.
down to the conversations we're having, whether that's in our mind or outward into the world.
Yeah.
And that is what's creating all of this. And sometimes it's work to pay attention because we've been embedded with all these things. And sometimes I'm like, wait a second, is that the right word? Like I have awareness around it and I'm able to check myself really like intensely. Like some days I'm like, okay, wait, let me just make sure, is that truth in what I'm about to say? Like I'll take a moment to just make sure I'm aligned before I'm like, but I didn't always do that, you know? And it was like, I can remember so many times in my world that I was reactive and all the things. And now I'm like, let's pull back a second. Why am I in a rush? Do I really like, what is this intensity moving through? Let's just make sure that this is really me, you know, and it's not like another version of me moving through the field too, right? So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, it becomes a habit, right? When you pay attention to it that much. But also just like for listeners that are like, whoa, I'm not perfect all the time, like that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
Like, your intention and like luckily positive manifestations manifest so much more powerfully than negative ones, right? So you can kind of always like undo yourself. And we live in 3D Earth, and that's
Yeah.
literally the reason time exists, right? So there's this buffer between what we're saying and it actually manifesting, right? So it's not like you're thinking about snakes and all of a sudden like snakes are like falling from the sky, right? So we have this buffer
Thank
of
God.
time where you can kind of course correct a little bit. But like you said, it takes awareness.
Oh, it's a big thing. And it's like, it is work, you know, it does like take us to be present in our world and to actually pay attention to the energies that we're floating within, to who we're hanging out with, to the events that are going on in
Yeah.
our life. Like it's all of that. And I am by far not perfect. And I always say to everybody, I'm like, I'm a human, man, and I will own my humanness all the time. But there's a
Yeah.
couple key factors where I'm like, I'm turned up in the space of that because I know the impact that that creates in my world, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like paying attention to that and really focusing there and like being in there is like, yeah, it's a very potent thing for sure.
Well, like you said, you are an amazing manifester, and I am too. And it's like once you see that superpower that we all have, right, to
Yeah.
tap into, you're like, whoa, I'm really powerful. Like this is real. Like I need to take this seriously, right? But it kind of takes like realizing that
Oh, yeah.
before you because it's so precious, right? You have to treat it like it's one of the most important things. Like I think it's one of the reasons we're manifested in this realm right now is to learn how to use our power.
I agree. I like to remember the power within each of us
Yeah.
too. It's like that. I 100% am on the same page with you about that. Like, it's like one of the things I speak into a lot, because the second you can understand that, then you can step behind it and actually lead the life you're meant to live, right? The one of a soul
Yeah.
contract, like the one you
Yeah.
committed to, because you could step behind that. So
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like taking off all of those other layers that were placed on top of you from like society or other people's opinions or cultural conditioning or, belief systems, what have you, and getting back down to your true purpose. So then you can really step into your power and, like you said, live out live out the lessons and the purpose that you're meant to in this life.
yeah, I love that. I'd love to ask you that question too, to be like, where have you been led on this pathway right now that is really feeling like juicy for you in your purpose-led life? I really believe that there's parts of it that expose itself in certain timelines for us. So like if everyone's like, oh my God, that's my total purpose, it's like, well, I think it's going to shift as you keep continuing on the journey and we add
Mhm.
layers onto it. But like in these moments of time right now, like in this exact, let's say, timeline, what do you feel really connected to when it comes to like that work? Like, what does that mean for you when I tell you like soul's purpose or soul mission?
Yeah, totally. And I really like, just before I answer what you just said, that things are always shifting, and like maybe you have this big thing you're manifesting that feels like your purpose, and then you get to it and it's like, oh wait, there's so much more, right?
Yeah,
That was just like
yeah.
the first. So I like that. It's like giving people permission to kind of keep going and striving for more. Um, for me, I've been really drawn to public speaking and to aligning with other people on the same path. And then, you know, because we're amazing manifestors and there are no coincidences, this amazing opportunity got dropped in my lap. I became part of the Los Angeles Tribune podcast network, and I joined it like not even knowing what it was. They barely knew what it was, and now it's this incredible personal development branch that's led by this woman named Mary, who is Tony Robbins' executive vice president of production for 18 years. So, and we've been putting on these amazing events. And recently I've been on stage with Les Brown and Joseph McClendon and Sharon Lechter and Dr. Joe Vitale and Jim Quick and like all these incredible people. And I'm like, damn, this is like literally what I was journaling about and like envisioning in my meditations like a year ago, of like being on these stages with people, because then I can like help so many more people, right? It's all about like serving. It's all
Mhm.
about the people you can touch and joining forces with really, really good people. So and I keep getting more and more involved in this whole group. And then um I wasn't even trying to create a TV show, but it kind of like landed in my lap, like literally landed. And I mean, I could tell you the story. I had like five different people on my podcast be like, oh yeah, I'm promoting like my new television show on this new network called Ethereal. I'm like, what is this that everyone's talking about, you know? And I had one of the people on the show was a psychic. And at the end, I was like, oh, give me a quick reading. And he was like, you're going to be on TV. And he was like, actually, you'd be great for this. I'm going to introduce you to them. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then that day I sign into my Instagram and there's this message from this woman who I don't know, I've never talked to before. She's like, hey, I'm an ethereal creator. I'm reaching out to other ethereal creators. Like, I just wanted to connect with you. And I was like, I'm not an ethereal creator, but like everyone's talking. It's like in like 2 weeks, it was like 5 or 6 people. And so I like finally was like, I'm gonna go look at their website. And I reached out and I went to their casting just to talk to them. And I was like the last person they talked to. And they were like, yeah, you're in. So now I have this TV show too that yeah, it's I don't know, it's
What's
really
it
cool.
called?
It's called Beyond Reality. It hasn't aired yet. But it's been cool. So like the podcast is personal development, spirituality, science, which is kind of like my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality.
Yep.
And this I get to go like way more woo woo.
Yeah.
So I've been talking to people who have had near death experiences,
Mhm.
remember their past lives, all these energy healers, people who can remote view. I just had Dr. Eben Alexander on, who has like one of the most famous NDEs, and Paul Perry, who co-wrote all of Dr. Raymond Moody's books with him about near-death experiences. So really fascinating
So
people. And
cool.
like, oh, I wouldn't have had the chance to talk to these people otherwise. So it's been cool.
Yeah, I've just like over the last probably year been connected into remote viewing and just really curious, about what that
Yeah.
asset is. And I follow some people on Instagram that do this kind of work and stuff like that. So it's just really, it's an interesting thing. Do you know a lot about it, or at least some about it, that you could explain what it might be?
I mean, I was just gonna say you're gonna have to give me those people because I would love to talk to them.
Okay.
I know like a little bit about it, but again, it's just like a huge curiosity.
Yeah.
But I like that you called it an asset. I think we all have these abilities and these powers. We just kind of haven't tapped into them, right? Just like all the clairs, right?
Oh, for sure.
But remote viewing is, from my understanding, the ability to literally like see what's going on
Mhm.
in spaces that you're not in. So there was like this really famous one, and I don't remember the person's name, but she could literally like put herself out into like the galaxy, like the outer space. And
Yeah.
the government was like testing her, and she could actually read the serial numbers off of satellites.
So cool.
And yeah, and it's just from like a room. And I know there was like government programs where they were like training people to do it. I forget what the operation was called, but
I'm not
it's
surprised.
just so fascinating. Yeah, I know.
Well,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
like this
I'd love for
Instagram.
you to share more too, though.
Yeah, I will, like, this Instagram account that I follow. There's multiples of them. Like there's like 4 or 5 guys that drop into certain places and scenes and stuff. And sometimes I hear them talking about people peeking into their remote viewings, like the government agencies, to try and figure out what it is that they're actually channeling, to try and monitor and manage the information going through, which I think is like really
Cool.
fucking curious. Like, like, and I don't know much about it, but every so often a reel comes through. Like, I don't go searching for their IG. I follow them, but it's like, the
Yeah,
perfect
yeah,
timing of a reel comes in, and then you're like, oh,
yeah.
they're like, in July, we predicted this, and based on this that we saw, here's the drawing. And then it's like, and look at what's happening now in the world. And it's like, it's really, really amazing and cool what they do.
So they as a group, they can like make predictions on the future and like chant. So that's super interesting. I hadn't heard anything like that before. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So I'll send you their IG so you can feel into that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, I don't know what they do, but I'm
And
sure,
maybe I can interview him.
yeah, I'm sure they'd be open to that conversation. And I would love it if you sent it to me after you interviewed them so I could
Yeah,
learn
yeah,
more.
yeah. I'll be
'Cause
like,
I
hey,
feel
here's what's actually
like,
happening. Yeah.
yeah, Kris, get in there,
Yeah.
get the information, and let's roll. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so cool. I love learning, right? Like I
yeah.
love learning all of this stuff. And it's really fun. Like so I had a spiritual awakening in 2001 that set me on this path. And and it was by reading the book The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life by Drunville Melchizedek. And what he did really well in that book was he kind of gave you breadcrumbs of like a bunch of different places to go. And one of them was like he talked about Zecharia Sitchin, who was like the grandfather of ancient astronaut theory. So I went on like a rabbit hole of that, and I went on a rabbit hole of like Dolores Cannon, and I went on a rabbit hole of Greg Braden, and like all these people and all these meditation teachers. And back then it was like no one was reading Zecharia Sitchin, right? Like, and then all of a sudden, like 10 years ago, Ancient Aliens airs, or 15 years ago, whenever. And I'm like, oh my God, I have that author on my shelf. I have that author on my shelf. And I love Joe Rogan podcast. And now like Joe Rogan talks about it.
Yeah.
And like my like husband's best friend the other day was like, did you know that there's a theory that like this ancient race called the Anunnaki like created us to be gold? I'm like, how do you know that? And it's like
Yeah,
he heard
because
it on
Billy
Joe Rogan because
Carson,
he
yeah,
listens to Joe Rogan because he wants to hear about MMA, right?
of
Like,
course, yeah.
but it's so cool that like the world is starting to be interested in all this and waking up, and it's just like really exciting.
Yeah, and it's so fun. So I am diving into some of the history stuff, but I also am very aware that my job is like earth plane right now. So meaning like I don't need to know all the past history stuff to do the work I'm meant to do. So sometimes I can get lost in that if I'm not focused here, in the space of it. But it's so relevant for a lot of people that are bringing, like, for you and the TV show and the people you're interviewing, and to be able to have these open, expanded conversations to bring this truth into the world, because part of your mission is that, where I'm like, I could get lost in that bookshelf, like, has books. I don't have very many books now because I sold them all or gave them away before I came to Costa Rica. And then every so often when I go back to North America, I bring a couple back with me. But it's like in the space of everything. So I'm like, I keep it tight kind of where the reading is and what I'm moving through, because I'm like, I got to stay on focus of like expansion. Whereas you, I could totally see how this all plays out. And was it the Billy Carson episode that he interviewed Billy Carson, and Billy Carson went down that rabbit hole too?
Yeah, well, Billy Carson's another one. Like he's not, I mean, he was not around when I first
Yeah,
discovered
no,
that work. I'll say that. Like
yeah,
I don't know
agreed.
when he started, but um yeah, like all of a sudden he's all over like TikTok and everything. And I'm like, well, that's cool. Like spread it, like let everyone know, right?
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, Zachariah was like the OG for sure.
Yeah, it's so fun when, and we're seeing more and more people speak into this, which is an amazing thing too,
Yeah.
of that truth coming out into the world. What are you like most like passionate about right now? Like, what are you really finding that is like coming through you where you're like, oh my God, this is juicy?
I mean, I think my passion is always just growth, right? Like personal growth, helping other people grow,
Yeah,
um, letting go of victim mentality, letting go of placing blame on others, really taking accountability for your own healing, stepping into your own power in that way. And again, like really healing, because like what we do affects everyone else. Like we are all connected, and we've that's kind of been a theme coming up. So the way that we heal the outside world is by healing ourselves, right? And then you can become that beacon, that light for everyone else. So I think the more we can help people to heal, whether that's like through forgiveness or releasing repressed emotions or changing the story about their past, because we all have a story, right? But like as you know, like when we start to like let go of things that don't serve us, and we can change our mind, right? And then we change timelines, and we can call into our life whatever we want. Life can be really fun, and it can be a game like that. But people have to like let go of all that other stuff that's so heavy. So and that, and then like on the very earthbound plane, I'm very passionate about you know, like eating well and biohacking and movement and all of that. So
yeah.
that's like my more like grounded um earth kind of energy.
I love that. I was just
Yeah.
literally on a client call today and I said, we've got to get you back into the basics. Like moving your
Yeah.
body every single day is imperative. Like it's, and I'm not going to tell you what to do because I'm not your personal trainer, nor am I your nutritionist. Like that's not my jam, but this body's got to move every day because all the work we're doing spiritually, we're clearing it on one plane, but the body will hold on to it unless we're allowing it to be released. So it all works together, which we obviously consciously know, but a lot of us are pretending potentially, or we're not doing the work around that. So I love the fact that you're focused there because it's with the work that you do and just in general, the messages that come through are channeling abilities. It needs a pure channel through the physical form too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we are here in 3 years having human experiences in bodies right now. Like if you want to manifest, to your point too, like having a clear channel, but like also if you want to manifest the life of your dreams, like you need to also be really clear, right?
Yeah.
You need to have a really healthy body. It makes it so much easier.
I totally agree with you. I'm in the middle right now of 75 hard, which is
What's that?
super like it's like a 75-day mental fuckery, we'll call it. Okay. So Andy Frisella, I don't know if you know who he is,
Uh,
created this, it's not a workout regime, it's like a mindset challenge.
okay.
And so it's 75 days and you have to do 2 workouts a day, minimum 45 minutes. One has to be outside and it has to be 3 hours apart throughout the day. A gallon of water every day. You pick a nutritional regime, something you're sticking to, and there's no cheat days at all and no alcohol. And then you take a photo of yourself every day and you have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction novel, personal development novel. And the mind fuckery part is sometimes you're chugging back water at like 10:30 p.m. before you go to bed because you didn't drink enough throughout the day. You're trying to manage 2 workouts throughout the day. You get no breaks in 75 days, like literally. So I'm on day 47 of doing 2 workouts a day for the past 47 days. And I have to work out still. I have one more workout to do. And I'm like, am I going to the gym in between our call and my client call? Or am I going to do my dancing / ab workout from home? And before I came on, I was like, I think I'm just going to stay home and do my dance ab workout. And then you just said this to me and I'm like, I think I'm going to the gym. I'm just like, and I could do either. I have the options of doing either, but I'm like, what would be the most effective for my body tonight in order to move energy through? And it's like, those are the questions that we have. And sometimes we let ourselves off the hook for certain reasons and energies, or we're just like, I just don't really want to go, or all the things, but it shows up in our lives in all different ways if we're playing in that game, right?
Totally. So I used to own a yoga studio, and like I always said, the days that you don't want to go are the days that you like really actually need to go,
Yeah.
right? But like also you can like movement, I mean, I don't know how hard your regime is, but like movement can just be like a gentle movement one time. Like maybe you're just like gently stretching for 45 minutes one day if that's like all you can manage, but you still got your 45 minutes of movement in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
Sundays
yeah,
are
no,
like
it's
that.
like, and it's interesting too. It's like the days where I like have to like drag my ass to the yoga mat and I'm like, are usually the days where like once I'm flowing, I'm like feeling strong and my balance is on and I'm like in it. And
Yeah.
then it's the days where I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling great. I'm gonna do yoga where I'm like, oh my God, like how long has it been? Like 10 minutes, you know? So it's like
Yeah.
it's really humbling. And I think all exercise is like that to an extent. But that sounds amazing what you're doing. That's so cool. How are you feeling after 47 days? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I'm tired. Like I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I won't pretend like I'm not. And I just gonna keep moving. I've done this before, so this is the fourth round I've done in the years of time. Like I don't stack them, but I haven't done one for 2 years probably. But yeah, it's just all a lot of the energies of this have shifted, and I just felt really called to like tap in and really kind of root into the space. And I'm going to be doing a fast in November. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, obviously I can't do heavy weight workouts while I'm fasting. It just doesn't make logical sense at all. And the body won't be able to support that. So it's like, what do I move within then? So now it's like flow and yoga and more extended walks and just, it's still the same energies. It just may not be the alpha male harshness that some of us would assume this challenge would be. But it's just like you said, it's like we get to make it whatever we want to make it. And as long as I hold integrity in it to the basis of what I know is integral to the actual challenge, that's the key. And there isn't parameters, like, yeah.
I love that there's space within it. And honestly, I think the body does best when you're doing a bunch of different kind of workouts. So maybe it's like weights one day, maybe it's HIIT another day, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's walking, and you can kind of like mix it up, right?
Yeah. And I'm in a country too where it's really easy for me to work out outside because technically, like everywhere I go is outside, but I like specifically am not in like a building. Like I classify it being out in environments outside where I could be like, well, I'm doing yoga in the jungle because I actually am, and we're not in a building. However, I'm like, no, like we need to kind of, would this be cheating? And it's like how you do anything is how you do everything. So it's like, oh, am I giving myself did I drink that last sip of water that needs to be, held for 4 liters or for a gallon, and I'm just like, and it's that accountability. And then you start to see it in everyday life where you're like, oh, are you cheapening yourself here? Are you giving yourself like that leeway that, you need to pull back into, but you're like, I'll move into that space. So it's a whole mechanism, and it's teaching you so much about so many things if you let it.
I think that's so awesome, especially when people push themselves physically, because if you can like get yourself doing uncomfortable things
Yeah.
when you're like forcing yourself to, when actual uncomfortable things happen in your life, you can face them so much easier, right?
So
It's like you have that like mental and physical toughness.
yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that. They like just stay comfortable because they're like, oh, that sounds terrible. I don't want to work out twice a day, right? And then they have a lot harder time when adversity and challenges happen, which of course they're going to happen because this is life,
Yeah.
right?
It's all the mental game. Like this, like the body will move with you when you move the body. Like a month and a bit ago, I did a 12-hour walk from sunset to sunrise. consistent.
That's awesome.
I got to go home to eat or to pee or to have this, like a glass of water or whatever I needed. And then it was back out on the road. And I watched by about 1:30 in the morning. I was like seeing shit, like it was like stuff was in delusion world. My body was tired and sore. And it was like, if someone saw me around 4:30 in the morning, it looked like I was hammered the way I was walking because I was just so done, like.
Wait, so it was sunrise, it was sunset to sunrise?
Yeah,
You walked through the night
the night. Yeah.
by yourself?
Yes. In the jungle
Wow.
in Costa Rica, in a very small town. And even the Ticos who are native to the land here were like, are you kidding me? You did that? And I was like, and I carried my machete on my back. So I was strapped up with my like actual machete, my knife. So in case anybody got any inclination that they could stop to whatever, like, and I saw some cars slow down and then they could see the knife on my back and they're like, no, we're not.
Like, I'm not gonna mess with her.
Yeah, because if she's wearing a machete, she probably knows how to use it, and I do.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm a trained boxer, like I've literally been boxing. I box twice a week with a trainer. So like I can hold my own, but still and it rained till about 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. So
Oh my gosh.
and he started at 5:26. That's when the sun set here. So because it always sets around 5:30, it's regular that way. And it rises at 5:24. So it was like 12 hours of walking.
So what's like the purpose of doing it at night versus sunrise to sunset?
So it's all the mental game. So
Okay.
you don't have music, you don't have a podcast, nothing. It's just you with your thoughts in the dark walking. And
Crazy.
yeah, so many
That's cool.
things like transpired in this activity, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But the number one thing was for the first probably 6 hours, I was rushing. And I was like, why? What the you have nowhere
like,
to
I gotta
go.
walk. Yeah.
Like you have nowhere to go. And then I was like, where is this actually transpiring in my life? And this is a theme that was showing up that night. And I was like, wow, like I'm not competing against anyone. Nobody's looking at how many miles I walked, 27 miles, like nobody's looking at this and you're not submitting your results anywhere. It was part of a coaching group that we got challenged to do this. And I think there was maybe 10 of us out of the 1,000 that were there that actually completed this thing. And because people just, you think about it, they don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't like, oh, we don't have to do this and all that. But it, like you just said, it like transpires into all aspects of your life. Like if you shape yourself, if there's an apocalypse that happens, I'm like, I got it covered. Like I'm going to be fine.
I got my machete. I'm good.
Yeah. And I will close all the doors so the snakes don't come in here at night. And even though it'll be hot as fuck in this house, I don't even care. Like we'll make this work. Right. So it's like one of those things though, in our lives, it's like we're tested by these experiences. And I'm sure there's been a few in your world, you were driven to and inspired, let's say, to write your book for humanity shifting. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that because I think it's an imperative pathway for you that you use this obviously for speaking and stuff. Yeah.
You want me to talk about my journey out of adversity or my book?
Whatever you feel called to, but well, both. Let's do both.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you a little bit about my journey and like why I wrote the book.
Wow.
So, it came out of my own trauma, like I'm sure everyone, right?
Yeah.
And we all have a story. Mine is I was sexually abused by a family member for 4 years. And when my very large, tight-knit, extended family found out about it, many of them disowned me. And family members who had been like second parents to me were writing me letters and leaving me voicemails telling me they didn't love me anymore and I wasn't their family anymore. And it was age 12 to 15. So I was 15 when that happened. And as you can imagine, it left me with a lot of low vibration emotions like anger and guilt that I didn't know how to cope with as a young adolescent. Like most adults don't know how to cope with that. And so I was getting in trouble in school. I was acting out. I was doing drugs. I was cutting. I was doing all the things. And my life changed when someone handed me a book. It was called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, like I mentioned. And what that book did was it showed me there were other ways of thinking and being in the world and viewing our reality, and that there was more than just what our five senses showed us. And I remember turning the pages and thinking like, wow, this is really feeling like truth. And it was just kind of like I was a sleeper agent, right? Like something inside of me just woke up. And so when I finished that book, I started reaching for more and I just became insatiable. I was devouring every metaphysical, spiritual, new age, personal development book I could get my hands on. I started going to retreats and workshops. I found teachers to study under, and my life really changed. We talk about manifesting, right? Like I was really starting to manifest everything. And then the other part of my story is as I was changing my mind and getting better, my mother started to get worse because she didn't have these teachers and books and healing modalities. Like I thought I was uncovering like the grand mysteries of life, but I was really doing the hard inner work too, right? Like I was
Of
trying like every healing modality. Um, just because it felt good, right? So my mom, it started to manifest for her as physical illness. So she got cancer, but she also got like a host of all of these illnesses that her doctors like couldn't even explain. So
course.
they did what they do. They gave her pills and they gave her pills for the side effects of those pills. She was on a fentanyl patch. And as a result, she would fall down all the time. She would nod off at the dinner table. She would forget conversations we had just had. And that lasted, she spent almost all day in bed. She was only awake for a couple hours a day. And that lasted for almost 15 years. And I kind of had this compounded guilt that I had destroyed my family and broken my mother. And then I realized that my mother was my biggest teacher because for every step I watched her take into depression and illness and victimization, I climbed in the other direction out of that dark tunnel because I saw firsthand what happens to a human body and spirit when they make that choice, because it is a choice, whether we're making it consciously or not. And then I was seeing what was happening to my own life as I was following this path. And I made this promise to myself that I would do everything I could to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Um, and yeah, I've been on this journey since early 2000s, and finally I decided to share what I had learned because I never really talked about it much. And I took a coaching training, I wrote the book, and then just took
Here we
off
are.
onward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love this story and I thank you for sharing all that. And I
Yeah, for
was
sure.
like, I knew there was something there and I was like, yeah, tell me about this. Go into that. But it's like the courage to be inquisitive, the courage to step in, the courage to lead in the choice, the courage to write the book, the courage to speak the stories out loud. It's like we've all got the stories
Yeah.
then, and we've been through the experiences for reasons. And
Yeah.
I really feel like we go through them to be able to teach others from that. And maybe not everyone needs to be an author or a speaker, but like maybe you give that gift to someone in your life that changes the world for them, and that was who you were meant to drop that into the field for, right? So
Total. I mean, if you change one person's life, it's like worth it,
oh
right?
yeah,
Like,
huge.
yeah, yeah,
Huge. I'm finding a theme that's been running through the collective of women that I'm meeting and understanding and knowing that we all have been through sexual trauma, which is
yeah,
crazy to think about. But it's like, I'm especially with those of us that have been doing the work and are really connected spiritually to the work we're doing in the world. All of us have been through it in some way, shape, or form. And it's been really interesting. And I say that word on purpose to see the commonalities that are moving through us. Like, why did this transpire for us? What was it about us? And it's almost like I don't have a conclusion yet because I'm still in inquisitive mode. But based on what you just said to me too, it just layers another piece on. It's like the light within us was shining so brightly in the ways that we knew how at the time, that the people in our worlds that chose to do these things to us or to be in this experience with us didn't want to handle their stuff, and we were mirroring some stuff back at them even at the age of 12. And it's really interesting to see. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, like, I also like you mentioned soul contracts earlier. Like, I really believe that we we come up with some big life things that we're gonna go through, the way we're gonna be born, the way we're gonna die, who our parents are, where we're gonna live,
Yeah.
and like big adversities that we're gonna go through because they give us the chance to grow and to learn lessons, right? They ready the soil, they plant the seeds, and then it's up to us how we grow. And I think that that's, unfortunately, like sexual abuse is something that can easily happen here on the earth plane.
Yeah.
And it's probably a a thing that a lot of us have chosen. And I'm sure that there's going to be people listening to just that clip on social media, like, I didn't choose this, but I really do think we choose everything before we come here. It's part of our soul contract. Because your cat is so
I
cute.
know. She is really
Because
cute.
big green eyes, so
Yeah.
cute. Um, because it gives us the opportunity to level up and grow or not, right? Like you can either get better and heal, or you can get bitter and fall into resentment and become really angry and eventually make yourself really sick,
Yeah.
right? The choice is yours. So, I think free will still exists, but we kind of have these like big boulders set up as points throughout our life that we get to climb.
Yeah, I call them pillars. And
Yeah.
I've
There
been
you go.
seeing like through the system, I keep feeling like there's three major ones that play out, but I don't know if that's true for everyone. But just some stuff that's been dropping into the field for me, and I'm just kind of like, oh, that makes sense to my brain, but doesn't mean that
Yeah.
it's true. Because I'm like, because the brain is the 3D mechanism,
If
so
you can imagine it, it's true though, right? Is
oh
the other
yeah,
side of that. Yeah.
that is
So what
so
are the
true.
three pillars? What are the three pillars?
Everyone's are going to be different, right? So depending on their
Okay, so
soul
it's like we
contract,
each have three.
we each have three major ones that are playing out. And I feel like most of humanity right now is in one of their major pillars of movement, meaning moving through to step into the space, to do the work, to do the healing. And that might be years in a pillar of that movement. Like you can recognize potentially in your world somewhere along the way, you've up leveled into the field that you're in now, and a new level is playing out in a certain calibration. But maybe one of your pillars was in 2000. Like I got my first spiritual mentor in 2010. No, that's not true. 2008. So like I'm playing in 16 years of awakening, and in that space of stuff, you've got a couple extra years on me, when you started reading those books and stuff. And it's like, but we're in a space that we've been doing this for a while, and we're moving.
Yeah, I mean, I also like think it's also making me think of like Dark Nights of the Soul, because I've had like, what I just shared was one, and then I had one in 2020, and it felt like,
Mm,
I mean, obviously in 2020, like collectively, the world was freaking going through it, but
yeah.
it was like every single person I knew individually also was going through something like really difficult in their life. And
Mm,
it kind of felt like that, right? Like it
yeah.
was like, okay, it's pillar time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or it's a tower moment if we're talking about like tarot cards or whatever. But it's like it was just strange, right? Like it was like every single person, whether it was like a divorce or like a whatever, just real shit. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah.
Well, that was the energy, what it was meant to do, right? It was meant to literally open up or blow stuff up at the time, right? They wanted people
It did that.
separated. It did. And it like even the opposite, just like we've been talking about, happened too. It's like people got quiet and they actually started looking at what is important in their life, and they started to lean on their own sovereignty instead of being in alignment with all these other things that they thought were important. And it did so many expanded things for all of us in different ways. My
It,
spiritual side of the business came through that year, where I was sort of dabbling over here, but never talking about it.
it's interesting too, like you're making me think like in 2020, there was like two camps of people, like the people that got like really sucked into the fear and the anxiety and like could not cope.
Yeah.
And then the people that were like thriving, like I was going through like one of the most traumatic dark nights of the soul, but I also had like one of the best years of my life. Like I took every freaking course there was because everything went digital. I wrote my book, like I was like home with my dog and my husband, but like, there was also some like really heavy stuff I was going through. Like my parents were on like the cruise ship that
Oh, I remember
like
this.
yeah, like the cruise ship. And like, I almost lost my dad and like my whole community fell apart, but like I also got a lot done
Yeah.
because I was thriving in it. Whereas like some people just got like paralyzed,
Yeah.
right? They got like so sucked into those lower energies.
I played in both worlds, so it was really interesting. I think I was in the like self-sabotaging energy for about a month. And then just one day I was like, okay, we're done with this fucking bullshit. Like let's keep moving. What do we need to do
Yeah.
now? And then I
Yeah.
kept hearing, you need to get online. And then I just kept hearing like later on in that year, it was like where I actually started to merge the soul mission activation stuff and really step up into that space, because I didn't have an option. Like, and we all have options, but they like stopped everything in my world. And they're like, you're either going to listen or you're going to be broken homeless. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what kind of option is this? Like,
Better listen, I guess.
Step the fuck in. Okay, thank you. Yeah. This has been amazing, Kris. And I love where we've led in all the ways that we've moved, because we've moved all over the spectrum, coming back into like conscious choice, like, and it was like, that's where we started. And that's where I feel like we're kind of completing the cycle and the circle around here. But I'd love for you, like, if there's anything else, like I always kind of give the floor at the end to be like, what are you feeling to say to humanity right now? Is there something on your heart that you just want people to feel, to be left with? And then I'd also love for you to tell people about some of the stuff you got going on. Obviously, we'll have all the links that you provided me in the show notes, and they can find you on social platforms and get the book and all the things too. But would just love to hear firstly, like what's the message on your heart today to share with everybody? Anything, whatever that means. And then, yeah, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think I'm just going to kind of echo what we've already been saying, is that we can create our reality. And, there's thousands of possible realities. Whatever you can imagine, you can create your reality. And, it almost seems like two next door neighbors can be living in different realities, right? Because they can. So, if there's something that you want to create, start to pay it more attention, get more excited about that goal in your mind than the fear or your past or your story or whatever chaos is going on in the world. And it's alchemy, right? You can transform darkness into light, stress into peace of mind. And it's not about spiritual bypassing, and it's not about hiding your head in the sand. You're still aware that there's stuff going on out there, but it's not something that you're focusing on in your world. So, it feels like a really pivotal time for humanity, right? Like, the world is waking up. We're rapidly moving towards this new earth. And now is the time to not get sucked into fear. And I'm like, the teacher always says what they need to hear. Like, you teach what you need to hear.
I know. I was like,
And I'm
you.
like, I'm saying this for myself as much, like on election day.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably gonna like go turn on the TV after this and like start to watch the shit show. But
I'm gonna do it too. Even though I'm
yeah.
American, but I want to.
Are you gonna watch it?
Yeah, I will. I will have it on. Yeah, after I go to the gym.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there you go. I mean, I don't even know if they'll call it tonight, but yeah, like you said, we always have a choice, conscious choice. You get to choose what you allow into your reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, the book is Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It's in paperback, ebook, audiobook, everywhere you get your books. Change Your Mind with Kris is me everywhere on social media.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Colleen. I like forgot we were on a recording. It felt like we were just grabbing a cup of coffee, having a chat. So I appreciate you. Thanks for being such a great host.
Oh, thanks for being here. And I love that we got connected back whenever we got connected. And like, I don't even remember how this all even came about, but it doesn't even matter. Our energy is in alignment. And I'm just really grateful that your message and energy gets to serve all the people that get to listen to this and the way that it showed up today. So yeah, just super, super grateful for all the things. And just like I say always, at the end, it's like, help us share this out, send it to a friend, tag us on social media. We're all up in this space to be able to serve. If you have a question about something that Kris said, please send her a message. I'm sure she would love to be able to just connect with you about any of the amazingness that she dropped today. And just give us a review as well. Like, help us spread the word out into the world and into the ethers, because every single one of us is desiring shifts and changes in our life. And maybe the person on your mind will be able to help, and you'll be able to help them too. So I love this. Kris, thank you again so much. And we will see you guys all. You're welcome, in the next episode. Bye for now.